In 1998, the Powerpuff Girls arrived on screen. France hosted and won the World Cup for the first time, beating Brazil in the final. Meanwhile, in WWE, things were about to explode. Although they kept losing in the ratings against World Championship Wrestling, they didn't know that sooner rather than later they would bounce back and become the leaders in sports entertainment. Many thanks to Manuel Saldias for his comment. Remember to comment on this video and you could be greeted in the next videos. In the previous year, Kane had debuted in WWE and had his eyes set on his brother, Undertaker Stone Cold. He was looking to become the new top champion of the company. Bret Hart was deeply betrayed in real life by Vince McMahon. This would make all the Harts leave WWE except Owen. For Owen, things wouldn't end up too bad, as seen on Raw on January 20th. He would defeat Hunter Harris Helmay, who had now shortened his name and would be called Triple H, and Owen would win the European title from him. And so we would go to the first pay-per-view event of the year, Royal Rumble, where a new and revamped Goldust would lose to Vader. The Rock retained his Intercontinental title against Ken Shamrock. One of the night's most anticipated matches was Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker in a casket match. When everyone thought Taker would take the victory, everything went wrong. This was because Kane would once again interfere and make sure Michaels took a real injury to his back, which would keep him out of the ring until WrestleMania. If we look at the Royal Rumble match, it's worth noting that Foley entered with his 3 characters. However, the one who would make a magnificent appearance was Stone Cold, who entered at number 24, and he would end up winning the Royal Rumble after eliminating The Rock, earning himself a title shot at WrestleMania. The following night, Mike Tyson was on Raw, where Stone Cold came out to the ring and ended up disrespecting him in his classic style. He flipped him off, creating one of the most memorable moments in Raw history. Vince, angry, tried to break them up, but blamed Austin for ruining his announcement about Mike Tyson appearing at WrestleMania. On February 15th, the No Way Out of Texas event took place, where Kane defeated Vader and Mark. Mero was getting more and more jealous of his wife, Sable. In the final match, Stone Cold, Cactus Jack, Chainsaw Charlie, and Owen Hart defeated Triple H, the New Age Outlaws, and Sadio Vega. On March 16, Triple H reclaimed the European Championship on Raw by defeating Owen Hart. He would make it to WrestleMania, where The Rock would successfully defend his Intercontinental title against Ken Shamrock. Would Sable get bored and get rid of Mark Mero? After having defeated Goldust and Luna Vachon, Undertaker had returned in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania and would face Kane in a match highly anticipated by the fans. Taker managed to defeat him, extending his undefeated streak to 7-0. Shawn Michaels made a tremendous effort to get in the ring that night and be able to wrestle. However, Stone Cold was at his best, and Mike Tyson was the special referee that night. Michaels was having trouble moving with flexibility, while Stone Cold really shined with an impressive stunner. And he beat him after a magnificent match that lasted over 20 minutes. It was Mike Tyson himself who declared him the champion and then ended up punching Michaels, while Jim Ross on commentary said that the Austin era had begun the following night. On Raw, Triple H managed to change the X and they would now turn face without Shawn Michaels. Stone Cold refused to be Vince McMahon's corporate puppet and hit him with a stunner, thus starting a rivalry with Mr. McMahon that would last the whole year. 2 weeks later, they staged a face-off on Raw, beating World Championship Wrestling's Nitro for the first time in 83 weeks. Though they were losing, things were already improving. In WWE, the X had invaded World Championship Wrestling in a military jeep in a historic segment. McMahon would choose a series of challengers for Austin so they could take the title from him, the first of them being Dude Love. A match that would take place at the Unforgiven event, where Stone Cold would retain the title. On the other hand, The Rock had betrayed and eliminated Farouk as a member of the Nation of Domination, and he would now become the leader of the group. He teamed up with D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry, but lost to Farouk, Ken Shamrock, and Steve Blackman. That event would also feature The Undertaker facing off against Kane in the first ever Inferno match in history, with Kane ending up getting burned. Vince McMahon's plan B to face Austin would be Kane, who would go up against the Rattlesnake at the event. King of the Ring First Blood match. Kane won the match after the referee saw Steve Austin bleeding following an accidental chair shot from The Undertaker. That's how Kane became the company's new champion. At the same event, the anticipated Mankind versus The Undertaker match would occur. A match that would leave everyone shocked by this brutal fall of Mick Foley onto the Spanish announcer's table. Then the match would continue, but Foley would keep suffering until he lost. Conversely, we'd have a new king, and it would be Ken Shamrock, who after defeating The Rock would take home the crown that had previously been in the hands of Bret Hart. The next night, Stone Cold requested a rematch with Kane and quickly regained his title. Deal of Rome, taking advantage of D-Generation X's rivalry with the Nation of Domination, would win the European title from Triple H. Weeks later, Mankind and Kane would join forces because they had the same enemies, Austin and The Undertaker. That's how both of them also defeated the New Age Outlaws to win the tag team titles. Their first challengers would be Austin and The Undertaker, who took the titles from them on July 26th. But what caught my attention the most about all of this was that The Undertaker had earned a title shot for Austin's championship. They had to coexist as tag team champions for weeks until their SummerSlam match. But without them, things would go wrong, as Kane and Mankind would reclaim their tag team titles on August 10th. On August 30, SummerSlam was held at historic Madison Square Garden, and a determined Sable would team up with a newly debuted Edge to face and defeat Jacqueline and Mark Mero. The rivalry between the X and the Nation would end when their leaders faced off in an incredible ladder match for the Intercontinental title, where Triple H would end up taking the victory. Even though The Rock was the villain in that match, he received an ovation from the crowd throughout the entire fight, something that would make Vince McMahon notice him to make him the face of the company. Sometime later, Kane would abandon his tag team partner, Mankind, and that's how they would lose their tag team titles to the New Age Outlaws, increasing the fans' curiosity that Kane would come out that same night to help The Undertaker against Stone Cold in the main event. Stone Cold would keep the title, but The Undertaker, as a sign of respect, would hand him the title and leave the arena, together with his brother Kane. At the next event, in your house, 24 Kane and The Undertaker would face Austin in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. A rather unique match, which was actually a 2-on-1 since the brothers teamed up. This caused both Kane and Taker to pin Austin at the same time, with both winning the match, resulting in the title being vacated. As a fun fact, in the dark match of this event, it was the debut of the Hardy Boys, two young brothers who had lied about their age. To be able to join WWE, Vince McMahon was looking for what to do with the WWE Championship. He wanted to find a good way to have a fair winner, but he would be interrupted by Austin, who would drive to the ring just to attack him. After that, the local police escorted him out of the arena, the anger towards Vince, The Undertaker, and Kane. By not making a decision, he would still have his ankle broken. Everything would go wrong for the champions, because after Triple H suffered an injury, he would also be forced to vacate his Intercontinental title, and it would be Ken Shamrock who would win it later after winning a tournament. At the same time, the women's title would be reactivated after the Alundra Blaze controversy, and Jacqueline would become the first women's champion after it was reactivated. In mid-October, the event Judgment Day would take place, where we would see a rookie, Christian. He beat Taka Michinoku to win the light heavyweight championship. Could he beat D'Lo Brown for the European title? However, there was one match that drew much more attention than the others, and that was The Undertaker versus Kane for the WWE title, with Stone Cold as the special referee. Since Vince had forced him to take this role and had told him that if he refused, he would have to leave the company forever. During the match, Stone Cold attacked both wrestlers and counted to 3, declaring himself the new WWE champion. Vince, furious, ended up firing him from the company. The following night, Austin would invade the show and start scaring Vince, frightening him so much that he wet his pants. After that, Austin said he had been rehired by Vince's son, Shane, and that he had also been given a title shot for the top championship. For his part, Vince would trust Mankind again and give him the new WWE Hardcore Championship as a gift. All of this would lead up to Survivor Series, where this time the event would ignore its classic match format and focus on a tournament to find out. On the same night, the next champion, Austin, thanks to Shane, would have a spot in that tournament, while The Rock was also preparing to be one of the favorites to win. Undertaker and Kane had free access to the next round, since they had already beaten Austin together. But their victory didn't count for them to become champions. In the rest of the round, Al Snow beat Jeff Jarrett, Ken Shamrock beat Goldust, and Mankind beat Dwayne Gills. The Rock and Stone Cold defeated Big Boss Man, who had 2 chances in this tournament for being part of the corporation. And Steve Riggle and SPAC were disqualified by countout. As a result, Steve Austin would quickly advance to the next round. The Rock would defeat Ken Shamrock in the quarterfinals, and Mankind would beat Al Snow. On the other hand, Kane would lose to The Undertaker. From these rounds would come the title match between Sable and Jacqueline for the Women's Championship, and it would lead to Sable winning the title in a 3-minute match. The tournament semifinals continued, with The Rock defeating The Undertaker and Mankind beating Stone Cold, when Shane McMahon refused to count to 3 and turned into a horrible villain in Austin's face. But that wouldn't be all, because The Rock, at the end of the event, would betray his principles and turn heel after joining the McMahons. To become the new WWE champion, the youngest champion in history, The Rock would start calling himself the corporate champion, while Mankind would keep insisting on his title shot. That's how it happened at the December 13th event. At Rock Bottom Injured House, they faced each other again, where The Rock didn't respond to the famous mandible claw and Mankind ended up winning the match. Although later we would see Vince say that The Rock technically didn't submit, so the result was null and The Rock didn't lose the title. On the other hand, at that event, Edge, Christian, and Gangrel started making a name for themselves in WWE and defeated Job Squad in the main event. Stone Cold would defeat The Undertaker in a Buried Alive match and in that way earn a spot in the 1999 Royal Rumble. The Undertaker would soon return to start his own Ministry of Darkness. Ken Shamrock and Vic Bosman would be tag team champions, Rock Dog would be the hardcore champion, and with all this, 1998 would come to an end. And friends, I'll see you next year.